My name is CouchCube and I review split screen, local co-op and single player video games. We got a whole chunk of single player coming your way today because it's top open world games. PlayStation 5, but there are some PlayStation 4 boosted titles. I have tried to keep that to a minimum. Produce an open world video about every half decade and you'll be pleased to hear there are no Ubisoft titles in this list. All of the captured footage will be in the game's quality mode if there is one available. If it isn't running at 4K, then you will hear from me. And obviously we're going first with Spider-Man Miles Morales. This was a strange choice for me because I actually haven't played Spider-Man 2 enough to pass comment on it. I know this one is a PlayStation 5 centric game, but it was kind of the middle child for me. Didn't get enough look in, and I'm quite pleased with how it's presented as an open world game on the PlayStation 5.
Today's topic? Oh, stockbrokers, for-profit colleges.
Set solidly in the winter, it is very spectacular with its snow and its festive angle, all of the lights. The Spider-Man games have a sort of lockdown night system depending on where you're up to in that campaign. I do and don't like that. You get to explore a lot of the daylight sections as you progress through the game, and there's dusks and dawns which look phenomenal.
I'll look into it.
Hey, so I want to hear more about your new spider powers.
The sweet spot for me with modern Spider-Man games may well be that remaster of the first Spider-Man, which was released around about 2022 and it was redone and SSD'd for the PlayStation 5. I personally really love that stripped down combat and that story, and it was just the first time Insomniac introduced us to that amazing rope mechanic and these Batman Arkham combat systems, which they've sort of turned around a bit. For Miles Morales you have an L button and that produces these big flashy orange Venom powers, very different to the Spider-Man 2 version of that Venom equivalent. This engine is also vastly improved from Spider-Man 1, giving us a lot more dissipation, reflections on the sides of buildings, and that was one of the sellers, is its RT reflections when you're crawling up a shiny surface and seeing the whole city looking back at you. Talking to Batman, Arkham and superhero video games, I think Insomniac are really keeping that flag flying. A lot of other big name AAA studios can't make a decent superhero video game at the moment, and Insomniac have kept that constant, and that combat and the lack of projectile weaponry and the fact that Spider-Man has to disarm and work around the projectiles, really cool. They've kept so many of that roaming the city, random crime aspects in, which I think is so important for a decent superhero game and open world. Remember, this is the quality mode. This is running damn smooth. It doesn't care how many enemies are on screen or how much you're using your web or if you're firing anything off or it's a slow-mo cutscene to a finisher. It is crisp, clean and a constant frame rate.
Grenade, get back!
Got hands? Catch!
Open world games have kind of a conundrum when it comes to boss fights. Do they cut you off from a main arena? Are they wandering around? Is there a leveling system where you wait to attack them? With the Spider-Man series, it's very much a roped in, really cool, railsy experience that you sort of duck in and out of, deal with it when the campaign stage comes up, but then it's straight back to business, in the city, patrolling, dealing with real-time crime. That's such an important aspect that you're not dragged away too much. There are games coming up that are a little bit guilty of that, but Spider-Man's, particularly Miles Morales, is pitched kind of perfect in that area.
So you taking over for the other Spider-Man?
Nah. Like I said, he's just on vacation.
Right. And he left you in charge.
Yeah.
I can't also not talk about its stunt minigame involving a button push and twiddling around to pull off pirouettes, somersaults, various awesome moves to fill in the time that you've got when you're free falling or even going to another objective. Pretty cool stuff, and look at these visuals. This game deserves to be on the list. I want to know if the second one also should have been here.
Get you involved in their mess today.
No. Uncle Aaron told me about him.
Sitting on PSN Extra at the moment also is something that cannot be ignored. the other two don't. So now's the time to have a good look at one of the finest open world superhero games available on the PlayStation 5.
No! That could have gone better.
And he left you in charge.
Yeah.
Haters would say this was what happens when you play too much Death Stranding. This is Hideo Kojima's awesome game we had about 4 years ago, but this is the director's cut. So it was only a couple of years old, and I recently went back through the game and thoroughly enjoyed myself and kind of put an argument towards making this list full stop. It is a journey game of sorts, A to B on a larger map. You shouldn't really be deviating too much, and you are actually just literally delivering items to different locations, maybe more than one, or layering certain quests up. But it's what happens between the stations, meeting the terrifying BTs which manifest at random places all over the map and come after you. You have to deal with boss fights. As with most of Kojima's material, most of your actions dovetail into the story where you are up to in chapters, but the day-to-day kind of stays the same. Obviously with the Metal Gear games we have some similarities, but with this it's a lot more Porter and a little less Solid Snake.
A silent, faulty feeling. A silent fault.
Soundtrack's got to be one of the more subtle but perfectly pitched on the entire list. The game has a brilliant feeling. You do genuinely feel like a smaller cog in a larger machine, and leaning towards that story, particularly with the director's cut, with a bit more projectile weaponry put in, and you've got that iconic Second World War stage. Death Stranding is not going to be for everybody, hence the reason it's not in the top echelons of this list. But people who have played it or played right the way through it or understand the message, just know when it comes to that open world format, some people want a different direction. But this is certainly something to look out for, particularly again because of the PSN Extra. It is accessible and the director's cut is also featured. The photorealism of the game also very much knocks me back. For a game that's running on a quality mode, you see this up on a 4K TV with HDR. Those greens are so deep, the mountains look amazing. And for this whole universe to be your playground, it's quite a special and unique feeling because of the canon of the game, how strange it is. And once you get to the end of that story, you do feel like a little bit scarred, you know, going through it again. There are options and different areas to explore. Now we've had that DC content. My point being, this is a Kojima experience to be savoured. We are also getting a sequel, and spoiler alert, this isn't the only Hideo Kojima game on this list. is how you stop a motorcycle in Cyberpunk 2077, with the two brakes, turning it, getting it alongside Akira style down the middle of the road. I mean, can we see it again? Really? You can probably tell I kind of have a special relationship with this game. I sort of watched it stagger out of the gate, sort of like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and now it's walking like a normal human being, playing like a normal video game, and it's made it onto my top open world games on the PlayStation 5. That's a hell of a thing, because I would not have said that 2 years ago. I cannot help but be impressed by this engine. I do like the introduction of the ray tracing, and the improvements that have been layered onto this game have kind of got ridiculously good. The detail on some of the NPCs and people hanging around the city itself is unreal. This game is totally current gen looking now, and having all of those performance options and working quests is awesome. That includes the metro. But I did step out and get this at the station. You're not out of the woods yet, Choom. Not by a long stretch. That's a cool thing. They haven't charged us for any of these improvements, including that PlayStation 5 upgrade straight onto that SSD. Load times are kind of flawless. But this doesn't come up too much. Some of the detail, the cars particularly impress me. That leather work on the back there, and the paint, the metallic, you can almost see the particles within that colour. Don't get pulled away, do not get distracted, Coop, do not get been with me a while, you'll know this photo mode took me down. I'm on 155 hours with the PlayStation 5 version of this, and 50 to 70 plus back on that base level PlayStation 4. Actually, it was on the Pro. I know, I cannot believe I actually managed to get that far on those two machines. Now let's talk about the added police system, and you heard me mentioning working quests. Of all of the open world narratives and stories within these games we've got coming up and we've had on this list, Cyberpunk could sport one of the best. The writing, the character situations, and how solid everyone feels and embedded within this world is sort of unrivaled, particularly with an open world Cyberpunk game. There aren't too many of them, and this one sits certainly at the top of the pile, but it took it a while. They had to make some major adjustments to its sort of RPG elements, even on the base level UI system with perks and upgrading your character. And they also had to add a working police system, which was super welcome and has changed the makeup of the game. There is only one other open world city urban game that meets Cyberpunk 2077 head on. You'll have to wait till the end of the video to see if it manages it. Now, it isn't Sleeping Dogs, but I do need to put that game on the channel again. Listen to this blissful city backdrop noise here. Cyberpunk have even made it on this list. If you'd made it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the answer is definitely not. And that's probably half the reason I subconsciously waited 5 years before putting another one of these together. It's really great though to have a game stagger through so many improvements. We saw it with No Man's Sky, and this is really a success now. It's something I genuinely enjoy. It's quite a tough one as a creator. Having to go back to games that have been patched to show your audience can sometimes suck the enjoyment out of even interacting with that game. But with Cyberpunk 2077, it's just got better, richer, more cool stuff to do, and loads more to discover in that amazing world. And we've got the DLC. None of these games, bar one, are reviewed with their DLC, and that's quite important with something coming up. It is time for the first of the big graphical hitters in the form of Horizon Zero Dawn Forbidden West. Now this does include the Burning Shores DLC, that was the aforementioned disclaimer. The graphics on this game, nothing prepares you. This is the reason you want to own that PlayStation 5 in my eyes on an open world front. If you enjoy top end graphics, I think this could be one of the more prettier games on the list. It looks on everything, the Order 1887, Rad Brad. This game needs to have some decent third person ARPG action, and it kind of really does. The bow works well, there's haptic feedback, the second best haptic feedback on the PlayStation 5, right behind Returnal. There is talk online about Aloy being dull in just about everything she does, looks and says, but it's more than that with Horizon. I think it's the very concept of its universe and the dinosaurs that always drew me in, and also when the game wants to be fast, loud and difficult, it certainly can be. That flyer and the flyer mechanic was an addition to Forbidden West after the original Horizon Zero Dawn, and it's extremely welcome, and I haven't seen a game handle it as well. All of that looks like humidity and mist around the jungle just looks incredible. You've only got to play a game like Ark Ascended, which is supposed to be an Unreal Engine 5 game. We will get to that at the end of the list. This just pips it everywhere. It also sports a far more complicated or detailed element and blight system, both coming from the dinos and delivering from your projectile weaponry. And when I talk about not just bows and arrows, I mean she can come up with all manner of catapult powered milligun, bombs, tripwires, spears with explosive heads on them. You've never seen such a wicked arsenal at Aloy's disposal. I also think not being bound down by sticking to 8th gen requirements has allowed these developers to really go for it visually, and this game does not hold back on any of its assets. That includes the world itself and the detail within the desert sections, and the day and night system is huge. This map includes Arctic areas. You even go right into luscious jungle, tropical, almost blue sand, white beach holiday area. Locations are absolutely unbelievable, and accessing them via that bird flying mechanic is so much more easier. It's quite arduous in the original game or at the start of Forbidden West. You don't get it till rank 30, which is a little bit mean. Keeping Ark in the conversation, this game does have a rudimentary form of taming. That's one of the main incentives for me, is to get a new mount, find something awesome like the raptors that you can take around and kill everything with. Some of them can be tamed but not mounted, so you get them to fight each other. That is also quite a spectacle. Earlier at the beginning I was mentioning games that put you away from that open world gaming model and shove you into a linear corridor mission section, and Horizon, both of them, is seriously guilty of doing this. I find Forbidden West the main offender, to be fair. You really do have to savour the sections in the game where you're allowed to roam around freely. Some of that does come up mid to end, but that front end, you've got loads of dialogue, loads of cutscenes, loads of caves that you've got to stay in, and even finding the electronics needed to claim some of the cooler mounts means you've got to go into a one-way ticket, a big cauldron. You might be in there 45 minutes, an hour. I'm not too sure how I feel about that stuff. Fighting giant mechanical killer raptors and hippopotamus that would make Skynet crap themselves, all of those sorts of things fall away, and it being one of the best looking video games, full stop. I think still in 2024, Horizon Forbidden West may well hold that crown I know a lot of Xbox fans will say Hellblade 2 is on that list. Maybe that's a chat for the comments. This is our second director's cut in the form of Ghost of Tsushima, one of my favourite feudal Japan open world video games. We do have one more to come. Let's get those heads a scratching. No, this list does not have Assassin's Creed Shadows in it because it isn't out yet. Plus it's Ubisoft. How long are you going to stand here doing nothing on the couch? Just a little bit longer, because that light has changed with those trees, those leaves. Everything about this game is like a moving picture. It is gobsmackingly gorgeous everywhere. And that goes for the combat, which was a difficult brief. I say that because this game is very much not a Souls-like, and it's also open world and from a studio that doesn't have a tradition with this samurai angle. But that did not stop Sucker Punch coming out with one of my favourite games on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. I know I'm sounding like a broken record with this director's cut thing, but this comes with loads more content, Icky Island, really good looking visuals again. Probably number 2 on that PlayStation 5. I know God of War is in there somewhere, but it is one of the top players for amazing visuals on the system.
Bastards. You won't torment anyone else.
Back to the conversation during the Cyberpunk section, talking about characters and structure within an open world system. I think Ghost is also very strong on that. Really likeable characters. The main character for me is stoic. He is minimal when it comes to emotion. He is the archetypical warrior in that direction, and I feel that is written quite well. There's no fancy bells and whistles to him. He is straight down the middle, trying to save his island. I think the island is a really cool subject. The Mongol invasion and how you have to win it all back, the sections reveal themselves. That in itself is an awesome piece of open world meta and executed perfectly in this game, winning the territories and every little camp being its separate battle. The light source on that sword when it goes through in the slow-mo, some of the tech in this DC version is certainly worth looking at, and I said that on the standalone video. If you've not gone to this in that new format, do it immediately. We are not in the top 3, we are close to the top 3, and this does not include Erd Tree. That all kind of rhymes. That's back to that DLC conversation, and this is me. I should be slapped on the wrist for this. This is technically old capture footage from when they introduced that ray tracing shadows patch. Since the new DLC has arrived, we've had some big visual updates on the base game of Elden Ring, so I need to push that video out. But this is about open worlds. This is about one of the best Souls games on both of those fronts. This footage was actually an argument to whether its quality mode has sorted itself out, and this is all on that 4K, but it does have some issues on those 30 frames per second. That's why I'm just chomping at the bit to find out what the game looks like today. Back in 2022, Elden Ring won my Game of the Year, and it was a huge addition to my library, and I knew the day I bought it that it would last me years, and by God has it. I'm still not ready for that DLC. There's still so much I have to do in that base game. Fighting giant killer crabs is certainly one of them. And that's one of this game's amazing angles, is that every encounter does feel random, and you do have that sensation that you are creating your own adventure through the optics of a Souls game, which is a crazy idea because they normally kept to quite a rigid structure. But Elden Ring offers all of that choice and exploration. It blew everybody's minds when it came out. Showing the lobster fights is kind of tradition, and I think everyone's in agreement with how well this thing is animated. To take on board the very posture and body language of a lobster full stop is one thing, but to incorporate it into fighting you in so much detail is completely another. And that's where I think the From team really excel, is their boss designs and behavior patterns. But the fact that they've woven it all into an open world system makes this game invaluable. It really will be around for a long time. Rise of the Ronin did not make it into the top 3. The next games coming up are kind of grounded heroes. This is the newest on the entire list and a bit of a surprise entry. Basically the KT Team Ninja format in feudal Japan on a massive open world map with 3 built up cities, more loot that your brain can possibly handle, and a stance system that very much makes Ghosts look a little bit simplified, dare I say it. I consider its Souls-like elements as strength, and it's also got a pretty decent story. It sports horse travel and fast travel and some of the more beautiful open world feudal Japan representations you'll see in a video game up against Ghosts. That's where it doesn't win. But for for combat and a variant on that Japanese location against ghosts, I do prefer it. The map has got loads of crazy detail in it, and the characters and the factions that you have to choose, and its current gen, fast-paced, twangy like Souls combat makes it feel like an addiction. It's something you just got to keep going back to open up and find out what stage you can take your weaponry to and where that story's going to go. Because it's new, it does still suffer some performance issues. It's quite funny saying that because the game's coming up, one of them's nearly 8 years old. This is running on performance mode at 1080 and 60 frames per second. I'm keeping the channel updated with what's happening with the patches because I want this game to look excellent everywhere, all the time. Days Gone is going to get sequeled, mark my words, I swear it. That thing made way too much money for Sony to ignore. Even if they get complete randoms in, slap on the name, they'll have to put something else out about this because this is the best zombie dystopian open world game that you'll ever get your hands on that PlayStation 4 as an exclusive and on the 5, and it does feature some incredible boosts, brilliant reduced load times, no fan noise because the PlayStation 4 does leave the ground when you start it up, and 60 frames per second. Mad Max game could have easily gone in this slot, and if you don't know how this system works, it's kind of the same with the car and the bike. You sort of stick with it. It is your get out of jail card if the Horde come after you, and you're constantly maintaining it, putting fuel into it, more importantly upgrading it, making it look completely different, customizing it, even making that exhaust quieter so the zombies don't hit you when you're going around those deserted picnic areas. There's so much to see in Days Gone. It is about building relationships with different camps and rescuing people. Got about one cutscene in the first 10 hours. The game is so confident with its day-to-day systems that it doesn't just have to keep flooding story and loads of dialogue to you. It's all laid out there within this fantastic world, and discovering things or just dealing with bandits. Human or non-zombie camps are as intricate as anything else you'd see in this vein, i.e. Uncharted or The Last of Us.
New bike right about now. Murdering drifters, oh god damn it. No. What are you waiting to jump me? Huh? Get in there.
Recently produced a video about bullet times in modern video games, the slowdown, the whole Matrix thing, and Days Gone has got an amazing one. I didn't put it in because it's more of a expendable mechanic than it is a mainstay in the game's model, but it's very cool. You can do excellent things, and it's a lifesaver when a whole bunch of zombies are running at you.
Nice. Bounty. At last.
As mentioned before, even without the zombies, it would play like a very, very good third-person action ARPG. And the cover system, all of the weapon tech, silencing and explosions and fire, everything comes together. And the zombies, they act as a sprinkling on top of a delicious cake. Actually pretty cool with the random encounters also. I've got experience with this game on 3 systems, and the Pro and 5 versions, when I replayed them, had loads of different characters, rescuable people, just in different locations, and they were also different people. It was a situation I think they roll out. It does stay quite fresh, and there is New Game Plus, I think. This is by far one of the best games on the PlayStation 4, and this is by far one of the best zombie open world survival games ever made. So Days Gone should definitely be at number 3, I think, and probably higher. I want to hear about that in the comments. Yup, 2016, Metal Gear Solid 5 to be precise, one of the finest games again on that PlayStation 4, and we do see some very healthy boosts, only 1080 but a beautiful peg 60 frames per second. This game looked good on launch, it looked good after launch, and it looks good 8 years down the line. Back to the Death Stranding comparisons, if there are any, and Kojima's work. This, for me, is one of the swan song pieces of art that he came out with Konami. Well, it was the last piece to be produced from that studio, so it weighs heavy on my heart when I play it. I've finished it a couple of times. It's one of these games that you really want 100%. Shout out to Jimmy. He's got nothing else to develop. That's kind of the promised land for it. Opening up all the other characters to take out on mission with you, and opening that second location to be dropped off in. It's not just Afghanistan, but that map is huge, full of wildlife, full of loot, full of interesting characters, detailed side quests, and of course the iconic Metal Gear game model. How does it feel having a game that's 8 years old, sort of still holding its own in a list like this that's full of current 9th gen, huge budget, brand new titles? Well, it's bittersweet because as much as I love this game and praising it, I just really wish there wasn't that split with Konami and we aren't going to see too much in the sort of military stealth shooter direction from his new studio. As far as I can tell, we can't be too clear on that. Death Stranding 2 might be a little bit more Metal Gear focused, but we do have the Snake Eater remake coming up, which is what I'm pinning just about everything on for my 9th gen Metal Gear fix, because let's be clear, this is an 8th gen video game. An amazing one, but 8th gen.
Yeah.
Why is Metal Gear Solid 5 such a great open world game? For me, it's all about its logistics and the message with using your iDroid to orchestrate everything, both from the mother base or to the mother base, getting picked up, getting dropped off, or the development or the research. Everything about the game allows you to not stop going forward. You don't have to sit down and go through loads of annoying screens. You just carry on being Solid Snake. And if you want to access a lot of the development trees or go in to have something dropped off that you need, you just can. You can switch and change your game style, or even your loadout, or even who's with you constantly. And that's a very special thing. It makes you feel like you're living a tailored adventure, that all of this stuff you're doing is kind of unique because it feels like it was your idea. Obviously, Kojima knows that it wasn't, but that's the joy of his game design, I think. That freedom mixed with that choice and then blended in with the interest in story and campaign and allowing you to take the tools to deal with those situations. The canvas is massive, and that's why Metal Gear is so good on replay, because the options for different direction everywhere, all without discussing its 80s genre, music, fashion, amazing nods to some of the cool characters and backstory and sort of homecoming for a load of Metal Gear heroes. It was a real outro for the series, and I think they did us proud with it. Do have an honorary slot here, so hold on to your hats. This isn't number 1, this is The Witcher 3. That ray tracing 4.2 I think patch came in about a year ago now. Standalone review, all of that jazz. Hop on into the link. I just couldn't fit it in. There wasn't anything on this list I was prepared to take off. Okay, Arthur Morgan fanboys, here we are at Red Dead Redemption 2 2018. So our top 3 games have all been over 5 years old, and as I have mentioned before, I'm not too sure about that situation. I'm pretty sure we will see a true PlayStation 5 version of this game at some point in the future. This is still sitting on the HD drive, but it's doing something incredible on 9th gen with its frames. We don't get 4K, unfortunately. This is 1080, but it just still bears looking at. It sucks me in every time I have to get test footage.
Do something. I'll get you help. Just stay alive. Okay.
Find a sick guy outside of town. Hadn't seen him before on previous playthroughs. It will all the time surprise you. And with my numbers on the channel, I've had some surprise with my Red Dead content. I put 2 videos out. I reviewed it standalone on the PlayStation 5 and moaned extensively about it not being on the SSD. Then I did an Easter egg about Judge Holden, which is a character from a Cormac novel embedded in a tiny sentence on a notice in a house in the middle of nowhere. They both got to 30,000 views. There was huge interest in this game still, despite its age. Why is this game so popular 6 years down the line? And I think it's back to that original point and that random encounter. We're still on this subquest, by the way. It is detail, detail, detail. I imagine the developers, the creative designers, when they first put this together, just sat down and thought, we're going to make the most intricately designed Western universe ever to be put into a video game, and they succeeded in that brief extensively.
What happened? Just saw you fall out of the saddle. Don't worry, you're at the doctor.
Why wasn't Gran Turismo 5 at the end of this list? Well, you could, in theory, switch them out, but for me, the Red Dead Redemption 2 lore and the stories within that map and those cities and those little villages and behind all those characters' lives, I find a lot more interesting. That sort of Western aesthetic is far more my thing, and I think they went a little bit deeper with that area and that character development on Red Dead Redemption 2 against Grand Theft Auto 5.
Stick 'em up, cowboy.
There's also not a single section of the game that doesn't look outstanding. There are no major popping issues, you do not see those frames drop at all, and this game has an online mode that almost equals the sheer size of the original base game single player. Talking about additional content with some of the missions and DLCs, there's just so much more thrown at that now than there is at the base level single player campaign story, which I wish they would have given us some optional DLC in that direction.
Funny you should say that.
Well, you know how it is.
Over
I told
here.
him, I say, that's the state of Lemoyne for you. $1, please.
For a whiskey?
Oh, that's the real stuff. From Scotland.
Okay. Here, have one for yourself.
Well, thank you.
If I don't get it in the thumbnail, I'll try and get it in the title, but sheer spectacle is the theme of this video, really, and Red Dead Redemption 2 is the one game that never fails to deliver on that front, with its immersions, with its stories, with its visuals, with its traversal, and its RPG incredible, award-winning Rockstar mechanics.
Oh, and friend, you'll be careful now. Immigrants, they're not to be trusted. Oh, good.
spiders are insane.
Which Ubisoft game would you have liked to have seen on this list? I have, of course, been Couch Coop. That is spelled C-O-O-P. There is no hyphen. I will see you down there.
I'll take